Hey, this week I finally made Super Ninja Leo and I'm going to show you how. So I'm using a regular 2012 Leo figure and I use a scalpel to help me take off the belt, just gently, like carefully cutting out the part holding it together. Then I have a black wire that I cut a bunch of little pieces off that I'm going to use later. Now I mixed together a bunch of Apoxie Sculpt, and I already had some pieces that I made when I made the other brothers, and so I'm connecting to that with some wet part of the shoulder pad that I put all those wires that I cut in, and then the other shoulder pad I had to build it up rounder, and it's got all these little circle things on there, so I put a bunch of little pieces. Now I put a piece stuck to the outside of that small plastic cup, and then I'm going to peel that off to get the indent, and I put on one pad and it's got a bunch of lines in there, and then it's got some rope, but I put the black wire instead of rope, and I'm just going to set that in place. Now I peel off from that cup, and you can't really tell, but it has lines. You'll see better later. Now on the inside of the cup I put 3 little sections, and I'm going to wait for that to dry to take it off because I want the lines on the outer side because he's got on his shin pads. They're like pieces of buckets. So I got that shape. Now it was suggested that I try making swords with a popsicle stick, so I cut it to size, and then I cut it in half just using an X-Acto knife, and I cut it halfway and then bent it. Then I used my Dremel to sand it down into a sword shape and a sword blade. Now these are dry, so I popped it out just by squeezing the cup, and I have those big pieces for my shin pads. And then I cover all of Leo with a matte acrylic varnish, so he's ready for painting because that'll work as my primer. And next, for the swords, the guard, I just have black 2mm foam, and then I used a straw to get the outline, and then use small scissors to cut it out. So I have a circle, then I make a line through with the X-Acto knife, and then pass the sword through that line that I cut in the middle. And I add a little bit of glue just to hold it in place so that it doesn't come off or move. Now I'm using my Dremel to sand down those pieces that I made inside the cup for his shin pads to get them to the right size and shape that I want. And it sands really easy. It takes 24 hours to dry the Apoxie Sculpt. Now I'm on to a burnt umber, and I do a light coat over his shell, but I make sure to get deep in all those cracks. Then I add some water to the same burnt umber to get a brown wash, and I cover his front of his shell there, but making sure to get in all the cracks, and then just light on everywhere else. I'm going to add more color. Then I tried to put green, hunter green, but I put brown again. I dab off some of the extra on the high places of the brown. Now I have a hunter green wash that I just made, and I'm covering the shell and all of his skin because he's pretty close to the color I want. So this dark green wash, it'll make it darker in all the nooks and crannies, and all the other spots too, and then I leave some lighter. I wiped off on his arms and a little on his nose so it's lighter. Now I dry brush raw sienna to pick up all the details on his shell there and lighten up his front of his shell there, well, earlier before I flipped him over and started doing the shell. But yeah, I waited a while to do because I did the other 3 brothers 3 in a row. Now I have daffodil yellow that I'm going over and dry brushing. I want to get a lot on the edges of the front there, and then just a little across the back of his shell and a little on his arms, his nose, to lighten everything up and make all the details pop out. Now I have a black primer and black acrylic. It's about 50-50, and I'm painting all the black spots. I could have done it without the primer, but when I start painting the Apoxie Sculpt pieces, it'll be much better, and I only have to do 1 coat because I mix the 2 together. And I paint the whole sword, well, not the whole sword, but the blade of the sword and then the butt of the sword, because I'm going to paint the butt gold and the rest is going to stay black, but I'm going to do wraps around the handles. And now I paint all the armor pieces black because that's what he's going to look like pretty much. And then I drill a couple of holes with my hand drill in the one shin pad bucket piece, and then I dry brush silver on all the metal black pieces. And now I have hockey stick tape that I'm using to do wraps all around his arms and his legs and wherever he needs wraps. yeah, there are some on its lower leg, and also for the sword, the handle of the sword, the grip I did with the same hockey stick tape, and I have the silver was still there, and I'd added 4 silver bolts and then a little bit more of the daffodil yellow dry brushing. And it's like an elastic rope. It came with like a tag tied to it of some shirt or something, and I just glued that down and wrapped it around and glued the other end because he's got a rope on one leg, just wrapped around for maybe he can hang stuff on it or something. But now that everything's painted and ready to go, I cover everything with a matte acrylic varnish, the same one that I used before. I don't like to use glossy because it's not great for film or photo and they're reflecting too much light, and I don't like the look. It looks very fake. But the matte acrylic, I think it looks more realistic, and also it seals all the hockey stick tape so that won't come loose. Now this is I had got a TMNT lot from eBay, and it came with one like plushy Leo, and he was gross, so I threw him out, but I kept the belt, and now I cut it up so I can use it for this Leo's belt. So it works out that it happened to be Leo getting it from Leo. But that's yeah, fun fact. But yeah, he's got it going across. I didn't just paint the other ones, I just painted the belt that they came with, but Leo has the strap going across the other side, because normally it goes like this and this time it goes like this, or vice versa. It's hard to tell looking at there and looking at myself on the camera, and I don't know which way is which. But then I put some 2mm foam as spacers to glue down his pads and armor pieces, and I have some suede lace I also used to do the straps because he's got 2 shoulder pads on one side. And then I glue a loop with the suede lace, just big enough to fit both the swords in. And I left them black because they're like the sword in the holder or sheath or whatever, instead of doing a separate sheath. I just left them painted black, so they can be black swords or they can be a sword in a sword holder. So that's the way it looks like. Next week, I don't know, I got some new toys coming in, so I might just be looking at those. And that's all 4 brothers, the Super Ninja Turtles. I forgot to throw Super Shredder into these pics because, yeah, I forgot, sorry. But until next time, next week, remember, always keep your head up. Peace.